In the quiet suburbs of Virginia Beach, where military families live behind white picket fences and practice the art of keeping secrets, Sarah Martinez thought she had found safety. She was wrong. The same system that had trained her husband to be one of America's most elite warriors was now hunting her down, trying to bury the truth she carried. They underestimated two things: a mother's determination to protect her children, and what happens when you corner a Navy SEAL's family. What started as whispered conversations in grocery store aisles would soon explode into a battle that would shake the foundations of military justice, expose corruption at the highest levels, and prove that sometimes the most dangerous enemy isn't the one you face on foreign battlefields. It's the one wearing the same uniform, sitting behind the same desk, sworn to the same oath you once believed in. This is the story of how they tried to silence her, and how one man's training in the world's most elite fighting force became the weapon that would tear their conspiracy apart, piece by devastating piece.
Sarah Martinez had always prided herself on being observant.
It came with the territory of being a Navy SEAL's wife. You learned to notice the small things, the details that others might miss. The way her husband Jake's jaw tightened when he came home from certain briefings, the careful way he chose his words when their 8-year-old daughter Emma asked about his work, the deliberate silence that followed phone calls from his commanding officer. But nothing had prepared her for what she discovered on that humid Tuesday morning in June 2023. She had been cleaning Jake's home office, something she rarely did since he preferred to handle his own paperwork. He was deployed somewhere she couldn't know about, doing things she couldn't ask about, for a duration that remained classified. Emma was at summer camp, and the house felt too quiet, too empty. Cleaning gave her something to do with her hands while her mind worried about a husband she hadn't heard from in 3 weeks. The file folder slipped from behind his desk accidentally, paper scattering across the hardwood floor like autumn leaves. As she bent to collect them, her eyes caught on a name she recognized. Then another. And another. Maria Santos, Jennifer Walsh, Rebecca Chen. These weren't random names. These were women she knew, wives of other SEALs in Jake's unit. Women she had sat with at coffee shops, shared concerns about deployment stress, laughed with at barbecues. Women who had all, according to the official reports scattered before her, committed suicide within the past 18 months. Sarah's hands trembled as she read through the documents. Psychological evaluations that painted these strong, capable women as unstable. Medical reports describing depression that none of them had ever mentioned. Witness statements from people Sarah had never heard of, describing erratic behavior that seemed completely out of character. Maria Santos, who had been planning her daughter's quinceañera just weeks before her supposed suicide. Jennifer Walsh, who had just started a new business and was talking about expanding. Rebecca Chen, who had been training for a marathon and posting cheerful updates on social media right up until the day she allegedly took her own life. Something was very, very wrong. Sarah spread the papers across the coffee table, her training as a former investigative journalist kicking in despite the years that had passed since she left that career to support Jake's military life. She began to see patterns, connections that made her blood run cold. All 3 women had been asking questions about their husbands' recent missions. All 3 had been in contact with a military contractor named Davidson Security Solutions in the weeks before their deaths. All 3 had been prescribed the same antidepressant medication by the same base psychiatrist, Dr. Bratt, Marcus Hendricks, despite having no prior history of mental health issues. And all 3 had left behind children who were now in the care of relatives, far from the base, far from any potential witnesses to whatever their mothers might have discovered. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stop looking into things that don't concern you. Think about Emma. Someone was watching her. Someone knew what she had found. She took pictures of every document with her phone, uploaded them to a secure cloud storage account, and carefully returned everything to its original position. Then she called her sister in Colorado. Linda, I need you to pick up Emma from camp. Tell them there's a family emergency. Don't bring her home. Take her to your place and keep her there until I call you. Sarah, what's going on? You're scaring me. I can't explain right now. Just promise me you'll keep her safe. And Linda? If anything happens to me, take these documents to the FBI.
She quickly emailed the photos to her sister. Don't trust anyone in military law enforcement.
Promise me. After hanging up, Sarah sat in the silence of her empty house, trying to process what she had uncovered. 3 women, all military wives, all dead under suspicious circumstances. All because they had asked the wrong questions about their husband's work. She thought about the barbecue last summer, where Maria had pulled her aside, worried because her husband Carlos had come home from a mission different, troubled by something he couldn't talk about. How Jennifer had mentioned that her husband had been having nightmares, muttering about loose ends and covering tracks in his sleep. How Rebecca had confided that she had found strange payments in their bank account, money that her husband couldn't adequately explain. The pieces were falling into place, painting a picture that terrified her. These women hadn't committed suicide. They had been silenced because they had discovered something about their husband's unit, something worth killing to protect. And now Sarah had stumbled onto the same information. Her phone rang. Jake's commanding officer, Colonel Patterson. Mrs. Martinez, I hope you're doing well during Jake's deployment. I wanted to check in, see if you needed anything. I'm fine, thank you, Colonel. Her voice sounded steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. Good. Good. You know, Sarah, military life can be stressful for spouses. If you ever need someone to talk to, we have excellent counselors on base. Dr. Hendricks has helped a lot of military wives work through their concerns. Dr. Hendricks, the same psychiatrist who had prescribed medication to all 3 women before their deaths. I appreciate that, but I'm doing well. Really. Of course. Oh, and Sarah? You should know that Jake's mission has been extended. We won't be able to provide updates for the next several weeks. Security protocols, you understand? After he hung up, Sarah realized what he was really telling her. Jake was unreachable. She was on her own, and they wanted her to know it. She spent the next 2 hours researching Davidson Security Solutions, using every investigative technique she remembered from her journalism days. What she found made her stomach turn. The company was a private military contractor with a history of working in war zones, handling sensitive asset recovery and threat neutralization. Their founder, Marcus Davidson, was a former Army Ranger with connections throughout the Special Operations community. But it was the financial records she found buried in SEC filings that told the real story. Davidson Security Solutions had received massive government contracts over the past 2 years, all classified, all related to international asset recovery operations. The kind of operations that generated enormous amounts of cash, the kind that might require someone to eliminate witnesses, the kind that could make wives' questions very inconvenient. As evening approached, Sarah noticed the black sedan that had been parked across from her house for the past hour. When she went to check the mail, the car pulled away, only to return 20 minutes later. They were watching her. Probably had been since the moment she found those files. Sarah made her decision. She couldn't wait for Jake to come home. She couldn't trust the military justice system that had covered up 3 murders. She couldn't rely on local police who would defer to military authority. She needed help from someone who understood how the system worked. Someone who couldn't be bought or intimidated. Someone who had the skills to fight back against people who killed to protect their secrets. Sarah picked up her phone and dialed a number she had hoped never to use. 3 years ago, Jake had given her emergency contact information for his former teammate, Marcus Reaper Johnson, who had left the Navy SEALs after a disagreement with command and now worked as a private security consultant. If anything ever happens to me, and you can't trust the system, Jake had said, call Reaper. He's one of the good ones. The phone rang twice before a gravelly voice answered, Johnson. Marcus, this is Sarah Martinez, Jake's wife. I need help. There was a pause. Then his voice became sharp and focused. Are you safe right now? I don't know. I found something about other wives who died. They're watching my house. I sent my daughter away, but I think I'm next. Give me your address. Pack a bag with essentials only. Don't use credit cards. When I call you back in exactly 15 minutes, be ready to move fast. Marcus, they killed 3 women. Military wives who found out about some kind of operation involving Davidson Security Solutions. I have evidence, but I don't know who to trust. Davidson. The word came out like a curse. Sarah, listen to me very carefully. These people don't just kill to protect their secrets. They're professionals, and they're very good at making it look accidental. You stumbled into something much bigger than you realize. What do you mean? Davidson Security Solutions isn't just a private military contractor. They're basically a private army for hire, and they've been using active-duty SEALs to conduct unsanctioned operations overseas. Operations that generate millions in untraceable cash. Your husband's unit has been compromised, probably from the command level down. Sarah's legs gave out, and she sank onto her couch. Jake was part of this. Her husband, the man she had married, the father of her child, was involved in whatever had gotten 3 women killed. Sarah, are you there? Yes. But Marcus, what about Jake? Is he? I don't know, but right now, that doesn't matter. What matters is keeping you alive long enough to expose this. Because if you disappear like the others, this all gets buried forever, and more wives die. Okay, 15 minutes. And Sarah, whatever you do, don't contact anyone else. Not family, not friends, not the police. Until we know how deep this goes, anyone could be compromised. As Sarah packed her emergency bag, she thought about the life she had built with Jake, the future they had planned, the trust she had placed in the military system that had shaped their entire existence. All of it was crumbling around her, revealed to be built on lies and blood money. But she also thought about Maria, Jennifer, and Rebecca. 3 women who had asked the wrong questions and paid with their lives. 3 mothers whose children would grow up believing their mothers had abandoned them through suicide. Sarah wouldn't let their deaths be meaningless. Whatever the cost, whoever was involved, she would make sure the truth came out. Even if it destroyed everything she had ever believed in. Even if it meant discovering that the man she loved was not the hero she thought he was. Even if it meant war. Marcus Reaper Johnson arrived exactly 14 minutes after his phone call, driving a nondescript grey Honda that looked like 1,000 other cars on Virginia Beach roads. Sarah was watching from her bedroom window when he pulled into her driveway, noting how his eyes swept the street, cataloguing every vehicle, every shadow, every potential threat. He moved like Jake did, with that same predatory grace that marked all SEALs. But there was something different about Marcus. Where Jake's movements were controlled and measured, Marcus moved with the fluid efficiency of a man who had been hunted and had learned to hunt back. 2 minutes, he said when she opened the door. Grab your bag and anything else you absolutely cannot live without. The files are backed up digitally, which means they're safe. Physical documents can be destroyed, planted, or used to track us. We move light and fast. As they drove away from her house, Sarah watched everything she had built over 8 years of marriage disappear in the rearview mirror. The white colonial with the blue shutters where she and Jake had brought Emma home from the hospital. The garden where she had taught her daughter to plant tomatoes. The life that had seemed so normal, so safe just hours ago. Where are we going? Somewhere they can't track us easily. I maintain several safe houses for situations like this. Marcus glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Sarah, I need you to understand something. What you've discovered isn't just about 3 dead wives. Davidson Security Solutions has been using active-duty special operations teams to conduct black ops missions for private clients. We're talking about assassination contracts, illegal arms deals, theft of foreign government assets, the kind of work that generates hundreds of millions of dollars. And Jake's team? SEAL Team 7 has been off the books for almost 2 years. Officially, they're conducting training exercises and routine deployments. Unofficially, they're Davidson's most valuable asset. Elite operators with government cover and unlimited access to military resources. Sarah felt sick. So Jake knows he's part of this. Maybe. Or maybe he thinks he's following legitimate orders from his chain of command. The beauty of this operation is compartmentalization. Most of the SEALs probably believe they're conducting sanctioned missions. Only a few would know the truth. They pulled into the parking lot of a small motel on the outskirts of town. Marcus handed her a key to room 237. Stay inside. Don't open the door for anyone except me. I have some calls to make. The motel room smelled like disinfectant and old cigarettes, but Sarah barely noticed. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone, fighting the urge to call her sister and check on Emma. Marcus had been clear about no contact, but the not knowing was eating her alive. 3 hours later, Marcus returned with food and a laptop computer. I've been in touch with some contacts. The situation is worse than we thought. He opened the laptop and showed her a series of photographs. These are surveillance photos taken over the past 6 months. Davidson Security Solutions has been operating what they call cleanup crews. Specialists whose job is to eliminate potential witnesses to their operations. Sarah stared at the photos. Men in civilian clothes, watching houses, following cars, sitting in coffee shops with clear sightlines to their targets. Maria Santos was under surveillance for 3 weeks before her death. Jennifer Walsh for 2 weeks. Rebecca Chen for 5 days. And me? Based on what I've observed, they started watching you the day you found those files. Maybe before. They might have been monitoring all the wives as a precautionary measure. Marcus pulled up another file on the computer. Financial records, bank transfers, communication intercepts. Davidson's operation is massive. They're not just using Jake's team. They have assets in at least 4 different special operations units, plus contacts in military intelligence, the Pentagon, and several defense contractors. This is a conspiracy that goes all the way to the top of the military-industrial complex. Sarah absorbed this information, her journalistic instincts warring with her terror. What kind of missions are they running? From what I can piece together, mostly asset recovery in war zones. Think about it. Every conflict generates valuable resources: gold, artifacts, cash, weapons, intelligence. Officially, these things get turned over to appropriate authorities. But Davidson has been skimming the cream, using special operations teams to liberate high-value assets and sell them on the black market. That's theft. It's worse than theft. Some of these operations have involved eliminating foreign government officials who refuse to cooperate, stealing classified intelligence that Davidson then sells to the highest bidder, and in at least 2 cases, assassinating American citizens who threatened to expose the operation. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from her sister. Emma's asking for you. She says men came by the camp asking questions about her family. Terror shot through Sarah like ice water. They had tracked down her daughter despite all her precautions. Marcus, they found Emma. He was moving before she finished the sentence, already dialing his phone. Linda Chen, this is Marcus Johnson. I'm calling on behalf of Sarah Martinez. You and Emma are in immediate danger. How many men came to the camp? Sarah could hear her sister's panicked voice through the speaker. 2 men in suits. They said they were from Jake's command, checking on family welfare during his deployment. The camp director let them talk to Emma for a few minutes.
What did they ask her?
Where she was staying, who she was with, whether her mother had been acting strangely lately. Emma told them she was staying with me in Colorado. Marcus cursed under his breath. Pack immediately. Take only essentials. Drive to the Marriott in downtown Denver and check in under the name Jennifer Walsh. Stay in your room. I'll have someone contact you within 2 hours. After hanging up, he turned to Sarah. They're accelerating their timeline. Using your daughter to pressure you was always part of their plan, but they're moving faster than I expected, which means someone knows we're onto them. What do? We stop running and start fighting back. But first, I need to know something. Have you been in contact with Jake at all since his deployment? Colonel Patterson said communications were restricted for security reasons. Patterson.
Marcus's face darkened. Colonel James Patterson, Jake's commanding officer. Yes.
Why? Because Patterson is the inside man. He's been feeding information to Davidson for over a year. Every mission, every target, every potential security risk. If Patterson knows you found those files, then Davidson knows everything. Sarah felt the world tilting around her. So Jake doesn't know? He's not part of the conspiracy? I doubt it. Patterson would have kept the real nature of the missions compartmentalized. Jake probably thinks he's following legitimate orders from his chain of command. Then we can contact him, warn him. No. If Jake's unit is on a Davidson mission right now, any attempt to contact him could compromise his safety and blow our only chance to gather evidence. Marcus opened another file on the computer, but I do know where they are. My contacts in the intelligence community owe me favors, and I've been tracking Davidson's operations for months. Jake's team is currently in Ukraine, supposedly providing training to resistance fighters. But based on satellite intelligence and financial records, they're actually conducting an asset recovery operation. What kind of assets? Gold. Approximately $50 million worth of gold bars that were hidden by Ukrainian oligarchs before the war intensified. Davidson has a contract with a Russian broker to recover this gold and deliver it to a neutral location for sale. So Jake and his team are stealing from Ukrainian civilians? They probably don't know that. Patterson would have given them a cover story about recovering assets for the Ukrainian government or preventing them from falling into enemy hands. The SEALs think they're heroes. They don't realize they're thieves. Sarah stared at the computer screen, trying to process the scope of the conspiracy. How do we stop this? By gathering enough evidence to expose the entire operation. But that means we need to get inside Davidson's network, which means we need to make them think you're dead. Why? Think about it. As long as you're alive, they're vulnerable. You have evidence, you know their methods, and you can expose their operation. But if you're dead, their immediate problem is solved, and they'll get careless. You want to fake my death? I want to make them think they succeeded in eliminating you. Car accident, house fire, apparent suicide. Something that fits their pattern. Meanwhile, you disappear completely, and we use their moment of relief to gather the evidence we need to destroy them. Sarah considered this, weighing the implications. What about Emma? She can't think I'm dead. Emma stays hidden with my people until this is over. She'll be safe, but she can't know you're alive. If anyone suspects she's in contact with you, they'll use her as leverage. And Jake? Jake continues his mission, unaware that his world is about to explode. When his team returns, we'll have enough evidence to expose the conspiracy and prove that he was manipulated, not complicit. Sarah looked around the dingy motel room. thinking about the choice before her. Fake her death, abandon everything, trust a man she barely knew to protect her daughter, and expose a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of the military. Or go home, accept whatever fate Davidson Security Solutions had planned for her, and let 3 murdered women remain unavenged. What do you need me to do? Marcus smiled grimly. I need you to disappear so completely that even the people hunting you will believe you're dead. And then I need you to help me gather enough evidence to bring down everyone involved in this conspiracy. How long will it take? Jake's team is scheduled to return in 3 weeks. By then, we'll either have enough evidence to expose Davidson and clear your husband's name, or we'll all be dead. And if we succeed, you get your life back, your daughter stays safe, and the people who killed Maria, Jennifer, and Rebecca face justice. If we fail, well, at least Emma will be alive to remember you. Sarah closed her eyes, thinking about the women who had died because they asked the wrong questions. She thought about her daughter, hidden away in Colorado, probably crying herself to sleep and wondering why her mother had sent her away. She thought about Jake, somewhere in Ukraine, risking his life for what he believed was his duty, unaware that he was being used by men who saw him as expendable. Okay, let's do it. Marcus nodded. First, we stage your death. I have contacts who can create the necessary evidence. Burned car, body too damaged to identify, DNA that matches yours. It needs to look real enough to satisfy Davidson's cleanup crew. Then what? Then we disappear. And I introduce you to some people who have been waiting a long time for a chance to take down Davidson Security Solutions. People who have the resources and motivation to help us expose this conspiracy. Who? Other military wives whose husbands have been killed on Davidson missions? Former Special Operations personnel who refuse to participate in illegal operations? FBI agents who have been investigating defense contractor corruption? And a few very angry congressmen who are tired of being lied to about what their defense budgets are actually funding. Sarah felt a spark of hope for the first time since finding those files. You're telling me we're not alone in this? Not even close. Davidson has made a lot of enemies over the years. The problem has been getting evidence that would stand up in court. Your documents, combined with what I've been able to gather, might finally give us what we need to bring them down. And Jake? When this is over, what happens to him? If we're right about his level of involvement, he'll be cleared of any wrongdoing. But Sarah, you need to be prepared for the possibility that he knew more than we think. These operations required a lot of coordination and planning. Someone at the team level had to be fully aware of what was really happening. Sarah nodded, though the possibility that Jake was complicit made her feel sick. I understand. But either way, I need to know the truth. Because tomorrow morning, Sarah Martinez dies in a car accident on Route 64. And the woman who survives is going to help me tear apart the most dangerous conspiracy in modern military history. As Marcus outlined the details of her staged death, Sarah thought about the life she was about to abandon. Tomorrow, everyone she knew would think she was dead. Her neighbors, her friends, the grocery store clerk who always asked about Emma. But somewhere in Ukraine, Jake would continue his mission, unaware that his wife had become a ghost, a weapon aimed at the heart of the conspiracy that had destroyed so many lives. The hunt was about to begin. Jake Martinez received word of his wife's death while sitting in a bombed-out building in eastern Ukraine 3 days into what was supposed to be a routine asset recovery mission. Colonel Patterson's voice crackled through the encrypted satellite phone, delivering the news with practiced military efficiency. Martinez, I'm sorry to inform you that there's been an accident. Your wife Sarah was killed in a car crash on Route 64. The vehicle caught fire and she was pronounced dead at the scene. The words hit Jake like a sniper's bullet to the chest. Sarah. Here's Sarah, who made terrible coffee but perfect pancakes, who sang off-key in the shower, who had waited through 4 deployments without complaint. Gone. Sir, I need to request emergency leave to return home for the funeral. I'm afraid that's not possible, Martinez. This mission is classified at the highest levels. You know the protocol. Personal matters have to wait until mission completion. Colonel, my wife is dead. My daughter needs me. Your daughter is being cared for by family. The mission parameters haven't changed. You have a job to do. Something in Patterson's tone triggered Jake's instincts, the same survival mechanism that had kept him alive through countless combat operations. The colonel sounded wrong. Not sympathetic enough for delivering news of a teammate's wife's death. Almost relieved. Copy that, sir. Martinez out. Jake ended the call and sat in the darkness, processing grief and suspicion in equal measure. Around him, his team continued preparing for the mission. recovering what they had been told were Ukrainian government gold reserves before they fell into enemy hands. But now, with Sarah's death echoing in his mind, Jake began to notice things that had bothered him throughout this deployment. The mission briefings that came directly from Patterson rather than through normal channels. The lack of coordination with official Ukrainian forces. The presence of civilians from Davidson Security Solutions who seemed to have more authority than they should. Jake thought about the last conversation he'd had with Sarah before this deployment. She had been asking questions about his work, pressing him about why his missions never seemed to match the official reports she read in military publications.
He had deflected her questions, citing operational security. But now he wondered if she had discovered something that had gotten her killed.
His team leader, Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez, approached through the rubble. "Jake, I'm sorry about Sarah, if you need to talk." "Chief, how long have you been taking orders from civilians?" Rodriguez frowned. "What do you mean?" "Davidson Security Solutions. Since when do private contractors dictate mission parameters to Navy SEALs? They're providing intelligence and logistical support. It's not unusual for... It's completely unusual. We don't work for private companies. We work for the United States Navy." Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. "Jake, I know you're grieving, but you need to focus on the mission. The mission to steal $50 million in gold that belongs to Ukrainian civilians. Where did you get that idea?" "From the manifests I found in the Davidson briefing materials. This isn't a recovery operation, Chief. It's a heist. We're robbers with government credentials." Rodriguez looked around nervously. "Keep your voice down, and Jake, don't let your grief make you paranoid. We're following orders from our chain of command." But Jake's paranoia, as Rodriguez called it, was actually the result of years of training in threat assessment and pattern recognition. He was beginning to see the mission for what it really was, and the timing of Sarah's death was making him ask questions he should have asked months ago. That night, while his team slept, Jake conducted his own reconnaissance. Using skills learned in over a decade of special operations, he infiltrated the Davidson Security Solutions command post and accessed their communications equipment. What he discovered made his blood turn to ice. The gold they were supposed to recover belonged to Ukrainian families who had hidden their life savings before fleeing the war. Davidson had purchased the location information from corrupt officials and was using Jake's team to steal it. The operation would net the company approximately $30 million after expenses, with kickbacks going to Colonel Patterson and other military officials. But it was the communications log that destroyed what remained of Jake's world. Messages between Patterson and Davidson's operations director discussing the Sarah Martinez problem and confirming that the vehicle accident solution had been implemented successfully. They had murdered his wife. Sarah had discovered their conspiracy, and they had killed her for it. Jake sat in the darkness of the enemy command post, staring at the evidence of his wife's murder, and felt something fundamental change inside him. The loyalty that had defined his entire adult life, the trust in his chain of command, the belief that he was fighting for justice, all of it crumbled in an instant. They had taken everything from him. His wife, his family, his honor, his purpose. They had turned him into a thief and a murderer while making him believe he was a hero. Now he was going to show them what a Navy SEAL could do when he stopped following orders and started following his conscience. Jake spent the next hour documenting everything he could access on Davidson's servers. Financial records, mission reports, communications logs, personnel files. Evidence of dozens of illegal operations conducted over the past 2 years, all using special operations personnel who believed they were serving their country. Then he began to plan his revenge. The mission was scheduled to commence in 6 hours. Jake's team would infiltrate the facility where the gold was hidden, eliminate any security, and extract the assets. Standard operation, except for the part where they were stealing from war refugees. Jake decided to give Davidson Security Solutions a mission they would never forget. He started by sabotaging their communication systems. Using techniques learned in electronic warfare training, he introduced viruses into their network that would crash their systems at precisely the moment his team began the assault. Davidson's command and control would be blind just when they needed it most. Next, he sent encrypted messages to several journalists and FBI contacts using personal encryption keys that Sarah had taught him when she was still working as an investigative reporter. The messages contained everything he had discovered about Davidson's operations, along with GPS coordinates for the current mission and a timeline for when the evidence would be most valuable. Finally, he composed a message for his team to be delivered after the mission began. Then Jake Martinez, Navy SEAL, disappeared. In his place was something much more dangerous, a highly trained special operations warrior with nothing left to lose and a very specific target in mind. When his team assembled for the mission briefing, Jake appeared normal, focused, professional. He listened to the operation plan, asked appropriate questions, and checked his equipment with the same meticulous attention to detail that had kept him alive through countless missions. But as they approached the target facility, Jake's real plan began. "Chief, we've got a problem," he reported through his headset. "I'm reading multiple heat signatures that don't match our intelligence. This looks like a trap." It wasn't true, but it would create the confusion he needed. "How many contacts?" Rodriguez responded. "At least a dozen. Armed and positioned for ambush. Recommend we abort and call for backup." "Negative. Mission is green light. We proceed as planned." "Chief, I'm telling you this is wrong. Our intelligence is compromised." But Rodriguez was under pressure from Davidson to complete the mission regardless of complications. "We go in as planned, Martinez. That's an order." Jake smiled grimly. He had given his chain of command one last chance to do the right thing, and they had chosen to prioritize money over the safety of their own people. Time for consequences. As the team began their assault on the facility, Jake triggered the network viruses he had planted. Davidson's command post went dark, cutting off all communication and coordination. At the same moment, his encrypted messages began arriving at newsrooms and FBI field offices across the United States. Then Jake began the most precisely executed act of disobedience in Navy SEAL history. Instead of securing the gold as ordered, he began documenting everything. Using cameras and recording equipment, he captured evidence of his team unknowingly participating in theft. He recorded the serial numbers on the gold bars, photographed documents proving civilian ownership, and created a minute-by-minute record of Davidson's criminal operation. When his team encountered the facility's security guards, elderly Ukrainian men hired to protect civilian assets, Jake made sure they were safely restrained rather than eliminated, as Davidson's plan required. "What are you doing, Martinez?" Rodriguez demanded as Jake zip-tied the guards instead of neutralizing them. "Saving us from becoming war criminals, Chief. These men are protecting civilian assets from theft. We're the bad guys here." Rodriguez finally began to understand. As Jake explained what he had discovered, the rest of the team realized they had been manipulated into conducting illegal operations. The gold recovery became an evidence-gathering operation. Instead of stealing the assets, Jake's team documented everything, secured the facility, and prepared to turn the entire conspiracy over to military prosecutors. But Davidson Security Solutions wasn't finished. When their communications came back online and they realized the mission had been compromised, they activated their contingency plan. A drone strike, officially attributed to enemy forces, designed to eliminate Jake's entire team and destroy all evidence of Davidson's involvement. Jake detected the incoming missile 60 seconds before impact, just enough time to get his team to cover and transmit their evidence to safety. The explosion destroyed the facility, but not the truth. Jake's evidence, transmitted seconds before the strike, was already in the hands of FBI investigators, military prosecutors, and journalists across 3 continents. In the aftermath, as rescue teams pulled Jake and his surviving teammates from the rubble, the conspiracy began to unravel. Colonel Patterson was arrested attempting to board a flight to a non-extradition country. Davidson Security Solutions executives were taken into custody as their financial records were seized. Bank accounts in 12 countries were frozen as investigators traced the money from dozens of illegal operations. But for Jake, the most important moment came 3 days later, as he sat in a German military hospital recovering from his injuries. The nurse handed him a phone call from the FBI. "Mr. Tragedy. Martinez, this is Agent Sarah Chin with the FBI's Military Corruption Task Force. I need to tell you something about your wife." Jake's heart stopped. "What about Sarah?" "She's alive, sir. Her death was staged as part of an undercover operation. She's been working with us to gather evidence against Davidson Security Solutions. Would you like to speak with her?" The voice that came through the phone was impossible. Miraculous. Everything Jake had thought he would never hear again. "Jake, are you okay? I'm so sorry we couldn't tell you. I'm so sorry you had to go through this." Sarah was alive. His wife, his partner, his conscience. Alive and safe and coming home. "Emma?" Asking when Daddy's coming home. Jake closed his eyes, feeling the weight of loss transform into something like redemption. "Soon, baby. Tell Emma Daddy's coming home soon." Over the following months, as the trials began and the full scope of Davidson's crimes emerged, Jake learned the complete story. His wife's courage in discovering the conspiracy, Marcus Johnson's network of allies fighting corruption, the fake death that had protected her while gathering evidence. 23 members of Davidson Security Solutions were convicted of crimes ranging from fraud to murder. 7 military officers, including Colonel Patterson, received life sentences for treason and conspiracy. Over 200 illegal operations were exposed, and hundreds of millions of stolen assets were recovered and returned to their rightful owners. The families of Maria Santos, Jennifer Walsh, and Rebecca Chen finally learned the truth about their wives' deaths and saw their killers brought to justice. For Jake, the mission was finally complete. Not the mission he had been given by his corrupt commanders, but the one he had chosen for himself: to protect the innocent, uphold justice, and prove that sometimes the most important order a soldier can follow is the one that comes from his own conscience. Standing in the courthouse as the verdicts were read, Sarah's hand in his and Emma between them, Jake Martinez understood that he had learned the most important lesson of his military career. Sometimes the enemy wears the same uniform. Sometimes the mission isn't what they tell you it is. And sometimes the only way to serve your country is to disobey your orders. They had tried to silence his wife, destroy his family, and corrupt his honor. They had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated what happens when you corner a Navy SEAL's family. The chaos they had unleashed would be talked about in military academies and congressional hearings for decades to come. A reminder that some people cannot be bought, cannot be intimidated, and cannot be silenced, no matter how hard you try.